and welcome to tonight's edition of Fact Sheet. Here, if it's not a fact, we don't discuss them. You're live on eTV, and as always, we're here to talk about our nation, Ghana. What's of importance to you is of importance to us. I'm sure those who are the regular watchers of the show would notice that we are not in the studio. Yes, we are in the office of a very prominent senior journalist in this country. We know him to be a pollster as well. But when it comes to issues to do with the history of the elections of this country, we can always follow him and count on him. He's the editor of the Daily Dispatch newspaper. Tonight we are in the office of Mr. Ben Ephson. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity.
I hope you're doing well today, sir.
Yeah, by God's grace.
So I've been wondering how the print media is doing. Especially with the advent of social media and a lot of content being churned out every single minute on Twitter, Facebook, and co. How's being the editor of a print media house like presently?
I mean, obviously, the print media has been around. The print media will always be there, but there is kind of suffering in terms of sales and space. You go to bed with a breaking story. By the time the paper comes out, events are over. So you need, I always say that if you give two people the same ingredients, cook the same food, it will never taste the same. So you need to twitch your stories to make it relevant. Readers of Dispatch will realize that with the advent of social media, we read the story and we change the headline. Quite a number of our stories are stories that we've generated, are stories that we pick from research-based stories. So whilst we try to keep flow with breaking news, we will always make you want to read the Dispatch. I'll give you an example. If this week there's a running story, it will be rare for us to do the running story because by the time the print media comes out, your angle is irrelevant. But given the experience I have and my colleagues in the office have, we'll always do a background that will make the reader decide to read, to find out, put it in perspective. Especially when about a third of the public are so young and they wouldn't know the background and why this is happening. For example, in the 2020 elections, 1.3 million of the voters who registered were 18, 19. So that is how we've adapted. Yeah.
Now, I believe I was having a conversation with another senior journalist, and I was asking him the relevance of the print media. As you alluded to, breaking news stories are already out there. The content about background research is also out there on the internet, and so people can easily research and get this information. Is the print media really that relevant now?
The internet will give you the front pages. They don't give you the meat. They give you the scent of the food.
How do you mean?
I do my checks. Like if you want page 3 of a newspaper, where will you get it on the internet? You get the front pages. Show me where on the internet you can get page 3 or page 5 of a newspaper. You won't get it. You only get the front pages. So that is why you see on some of the pages, because there's the advent of newspaper review on TV and radio, we put some of our good stories, maybe why Ben Ephson's head is big, see page 5. It is rare for the newspapers or radio, TV or social media to go and capture page 5. You need to get the paper. Yeah, so internet will be there. If you want the front page, you get it. But I don't see anywhere in the internet if you want pages, inside page of the newspaper, they stock it. They don't.
Do you think people read
Pardon?
newspapers? Do you think people read newspapers today?
Well, people read. Social media will give you the front pages. They give you the flavor of the story. They don't give you the meat. You need to read to find out the meat.
But do people read papers today?
Oh, people read. I would say that maybe 2-3% of the public. Because if you are doing research and you click on social media, it will give you the paper which has carried that story. As a researcher, what do? You have to go to the library and go and pick that newspaper and refer. There's so much you can put on the front page. Yeah.
Now, if 2 to 3% of people are reading, then you're talking about your ability to entice people to advertise in these papers so as to make some money to survive.
Yeah.
Do you get adverts? Or how are you surviving?
We do get adverts. Definitely, you will reduce your print run. You will reduce your staff. You understand? So, in certain regions where you had offices or correspondents, you shut it down and maintain the core regional offices. And you get adverts. It will not be like before. I mean, clearly, if somebody, like between now and 2024, will be relevant because NDC will be attempting to break the 8. MPP President Akufo-Addo is exiting. They are going to elect a new flag bearer. They are going to start electing potential delegates who elect the flag bearer. So for us, for example, every 8 years, we are in good business the last 4 years because when there will be change of leadership and so on. So, and normally a first year and a half after elections, we slow down and so, but getting to the end, you can see that politicking has started. So we are kind of busy, our hands are kind of full.
You made the point about the screaming headlines and that everybody can, put up a headline. Now, I'm thinking about your point of view on the professionalism in the space, not necessarily print media, but generality of, journalism. Do you think that level of professionalism we used to have is still there?
I think that's dwindled because there are a lot of people who haven't gotten the training, who don't have the expertise. So yes, they put it out there, but it gets to a point you can succeed to fool some of the people for some of the time. But you get to a point, if today is Thursday and you write it's Thursday, nobody will believe you.
In which of the realms is it much more amplified? For instance, is it TV? Is it radio? Is it the print? That issue of unprofessionalism we speak of, the dwindling professionalism.
Oh, I think that it's. I think that is more of. It's more of radio.
More of radio.
Live. It's more of live journalism.
Live journalism.
Somebody says it and it's gone. Print, yes, you make mistakes, but print, you have time to go through. So the sensationalism and so on is more liable. It will flow from live and radio and TV.
Now, let's come to something which I noticed when I entered your office, and that's this particular picture of the late Professor John E. Banzer. It's intriguing that of all the presidents we've had in this country, I haven't seen that of Nkrumah, but I've seen that of Professor Mills. Why?
Well, I've known Professor Mills since 1980. He was like a big brother to me, so I have that personal relationship with him.
That's why you still have this picture here. But I think that if the Benefson I know is a Benefson I know, you've got good relationships with all other presidents. I would have expected to see maybe like even Nkrumah's own here, considering how he's touted as, the African hero, but none can be found here.
Well,
what's really the link?
Well, I'll be 64 in October. When Nkrumah was overthrown, I was about 9 years old. So, yes. But the truth is that the CPP, the Nkrumahism front, is fragmented, and there wasn't that link that I had with Prof. Even before he became president, we had been close. When I was at the University of Ghana, Prof was in charge of the sports. And I was playing volleyball and handball for the university. So through that, we were good friends before sports at the university. Yeah. So
do you think would have his type or his kind ever?
Well, I think before he came, I'm sure many people didn't think that we'll have his kind. So I'm sure along the line there'll be somebody who is not a politician, but who people will entrust not to behave like a typical politician. So I'm sure somebody like him will come along the line someday.
But have you seen the traits of Professor Mills and any of the presidents we've had post Mills?
You see, until you get the power, you will never know the person's ability. Until you get the power, you will never know the person's trait. Professor Mills was a politician. He attempted it. When he became president, he was virtually the same person. There are some politicians, you see their traits. And when they become president, they are different people.
Are you referencing, let's say, John Mahama or President Akufo-Addo?
I'm referencing presidents throughout the world. You read about them, what they say in opposition. When they come into power, it's a different ball game. It's not only Ghana.
But let's put it in the local context.
Yeah.
For now, we can only speak of two. As John Rawlings is no more. So rest in peace.
So I can speak about Kufuor,
Yes,
can speak about Mahama, can speak about Prof, I can speak about Akufo-Addo.
Yes, let's speak about President Akufo-Addo. Let's speak about John Mahama. Do you find the traits of President Mills in any of these individuals?
I think that one of the traits of Mills, he had humility, he could listen, and he could find a way. Definitely he had to rely on people. I think that Akufo-Addo listens, but I think that, if you have never been to the kitchen before and you see somebody sweating, you think that the person is sick. When you get in there, it's different from outside, or it's different from talking to people who are in the seat of government. And I think that Mahama and Akufo-Addo, Kufuor, they all have their traits. They all have their... Because Mills wasn't a politician to the core. He brought on board a combination of sympathy, humility, but firmness. So that is his trait. Akufo-Addo had been in the trenches. He's come on board, and clearly he's brought certain things that I'm sure from outside, next time he's in the world and he's outside, he's the same person. You watch what you say, the same thing happens to Mama. And when you get to the seat, the ball game is different. Yeah.
You said that for Mills, he was the same person before he assumed the seat as president. Is that to suggest that Akufo-Addo is not the same person as he was in terms of traits and the things he professed as he became president?
You see, Akufo-Addo and perhaps Mama's disadvantage is that they've said things before they go to the top. So you can always refer them to it. That you said this. So that's their disadvantage. With Kufuor, Akufo-Addo, this is the disadvantage they have. Most has not been in the political space for a long time. So that is his advantage.
Okay.
Yes, the difference between the three I'm talking about, and even Rollins, may he rest in peace, you know. So this is the advantage most had. He hasn't been in the podcast space for a long time. So he had advantage of coming out of something that you can't point out. You said this and you are doing this.
But he had contested elections and lost, and he had made several pronouncements as to how, when given the opportunity, he would lead this country. And he lived up to that bill from the picture I get from you. And so that assertion that maybe you would not have been in the political space for that long.
Often talking about political place, like Mahama went to parliament, he campaigned. Agufadi went to parliament, he campaigned before he became president. Most he didn't go there. So there's an advantage that the late most had. So that's the difference.
Now, finally, on this, what I saw here, one of the fundamental issues, underlying issues that has always taken prominence when it comes to elections in this country has been the fight against corruption.
Yeah.
Still looking at Mills and, you know, the tenure of President Mahama and the tenure of President Akufo-Addo, do you see that zeal, that commitment to fight corruption in this country?
There is that zeal. But you see, being a head of state is not as easy as many people think. Along the line, you owe favors. Along the line, you need to satisfy people who had helped you come to office. And along the line, you need to be careful that whilst you need to help people, there must be a line that you should not cross. So that's the difficulty with presidents trying to fight corruption. Fighting corruption is not easy, but I think that there is the need to make it very unattractive. Somebody goes to steal a fowl, or he picks somebody's pocket, he's fined 800 cedis, 500 cedis he cannot pay. He goes in 12 months. He takes prison life, he becomes hardened. Somebody with the stroke of a pen, millions. The case will drag on and the person gets free. One of the reasons I think that many people are still corrupt is corruption is not punished. You don't need to, many people don't, you don't need to, somebody has, a public officer has, by corrupt means acquired property. You jail him. What will you gain? You are punishing him. But it will be better for the state and the people if you give the person a choice. This is how much we found you culpable. I'm sure it's in the books, but how often is it used? Maybe 10 times the amount you lost. The person's properties may be reduced to from 5-6 houses, may be reduced to 1 house and 2 cars, and don't go into prison. In that doing, we get most of the stolen property back. And if you look at recent judgments and so on, countries where monies are stored are being seized and returned to the people. So I believe that when we are able to get evidence of people in power being corrupt, the state will benefit by them returning most of the monies to state. So there are ways that I think that where the goods and the properties are stored, there are ways that they are encouraging developing countries to try and bring them back and minimize 20 years in prison when they loot. Once the person knows that if he brings maybe 80% of whatever he has stolen, you have the freedom. The person will opt for that.
All right. If you just join us, I'm here with Mr. Ben Ephson. We are having a conversation about a myriad of issues. We're taking a short breather. When we come back, we will continue live on Fact Sheet. We encourage you to send your thoughts, your views, and your comments to us through our WhatsApp line. We'll be right back. Alright, so you're welcome back. This is Fact Sheet live on eTV, live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. We're here with Mr. Ben Ephson, editor of the Daily Dispatch newspaper and a poster as well. So, Uncle Ben, as I popularly call you, let's look at the 4-year tenure of President Akufo-Addo. Now, how would you describe the performance of the Akufo-Addo administration 4 years on?
I think that it's been balanced. When you're out of power, you may be a minister. He was a minister, important minister in Kufuor's government. You may have seen semblance of the president working. But I'm sure once he got in there in January 2017, he realized that it's not that easy, to be outside there. So I think that I'll give it maybe 50-55, and the election results of 2020 kind of smoothened it out, because I knew that he was going to win, and it was going to be the free SHS that was going to drive him past the post. I knew that we were going to lose a lot of seats, because for certain things, people were going to punish the MPP by not voting for their parliamentary candidates. And some of the executives of the MPP, some of the constituencies also contributed to the loss of seats. What some of them did was to take money from maybe wealthier candidates and disqualify more popular candidates. So people didn't just turn out to vote. And in elections, if your base does not get out to vote, you are done. Because you need your base to come out to vote. Then you can rely on the swing voters to help you through. So I think that basically the results, especially the presidential, resonated with Akufo-Addo had two or three. The free just pushed him over the line. There's no doubt about that. Many swing voters felt that if Mahama comes, he was going to cancel free church. See, Mahama had not been clear on the free church. He was double-tongued. It was expensive, and people thought he was going to cancel it, and so on. So, basically, yes, I think that it was fair. It was maybe about 55%. So it kind of reflected the results of 2020.
Now, there are certain key issues that have come up during his governance, and that has to do with issues to do with the level of borrowing. It was one of the issues in the 2016 elections where the Mahama administration was being told that they were borrowing and that there was money in the system. And so we could find it and then build our nation without borrowing. But as we speak now, we go about 300 billion in terms of our indebtedness. In that respect, do you see that 55 you gave him just a few minutes ago still that important?
You see, what many people forget in elections, there's nobody who has 2 votes. So the middle class, you and I, will talk about, you said Mama was borrowing, you are borrowing more. For the man down there, he doesn't care about the borrowing. What have you done? Have you improved? They don't care how you improve people's lives. They don't care how things are better for them. It's the people who are educated, who speak big English, borrowing. If the person is borrowing and lives are better, they vote
Are lives better under the Akufo-Addo government?
Well, from the elections, lives are better because the swing voters who determine who should come in. It's the swing voters who determine. So clearly, if you look at the votes, clearly people think that Akufo-Addo, it is 2024 will know the performance. Because before he came in 2016, he said certain things he was going to do. 2020, people think that he had not lived up to it.
Do you think he lived up to the promises he made?
Oh, well, I mean, I have one vote. The promises he wrote is people out there who are going to judge. And majority of Ghanaians think that he lived up to some of them. Otherwise, Mahama would have won.
But, you know, let's not generalize and focus on elections alone. But
you see,
you may be an individual, but you agree with me that an individual's voice sometimes may travel farther than the voice of 10 people.
Yes.
Yes, and so as much as you are an individual, your voice is a very weighty one.
You see, because I do post, I'm careful to bring out my views on certain people. Will think that I'm putting my views in it. I do have one vote. It's true the elections can be won by one vote, but because for the past 20 years, I've never given my judgment on governments because people will think that that influences my work. You get me?
But has your life been better under the first tenure of Akufo-Addo?
Oh, it has been difficult because of COVID. Definitely with each passing year, nobody can say their lives have been better for anybody. With each passing year, things are difficult.
But COVID was just 2019.
2019, yes, but you know that from 2016 onwards, that is why I believe that we should have 1 6-year term for government.
1 6-year term
yes.
for government.
Because every 4 years, the person comes, he's now settling down. The last year, he's exiting. He has 2 years. I think that we should have 1 6-year term for a president. Because yes, for my life is that definitely with the space, when the economy is tight, people don't advertise as much as they would want to. And when things are expensive, people spend more. So I have my views. I will go and vote. And I've always said, because of the polling I do, I don't give judgments. I've never given judgments on a government either before or after.
Working with your 6-year tenure, suggestion, can't the contrary view be made that if all others, John Mahama, Atta Mills, J. Kufuor, if all others had had the same 4-year tenure, and yet within their first year tenures were able to see some level of development, then we should judge President Akufo-Addo by that same scale.
How do you judge development unless you see majority of people? In elections, the way I've dealt with elections, majority of voters decide whether things are level. You cannot have, if a president is retained after the first term, it is because majority of Ghanaians believe that he's done well, not the best. So at any given time, any government which is retained in power, things may be difficult, but majority of Ghanaians think, and because I think, I've always held the view that swing voters are about a third. They decide. So I look at the numbers and see that for Akufo-Addo's first term, majority of Ghanaians think that he did well, just about 55%. Because a party's core base will always vote. Either they don't go and vote, or they will go and vote for their party. It's the swing voters who determine whether a government should come back to power or not.
Does the happenings in Parliament reflect on the governance of a party? This is what I mean. For instance, for a party that had enjoyed so much goodwill in the 2016 elections when John Mahama lost, the margin of the victory and the number of seats that were won in Parliament, and then we see that same government going into an election in 2020, the margins do not widen. The members of Parliament also, they lose. Now we have a hang Parliament, as we call it. Is that not a reflection of the people's view of the government then?
I think
regardless of their meaning.
You see, I think that the results of 2020 tells you the sophistication of the Ghanaian voter. If you look at the swing of votes, and we didn't go to a runoff, it tells you the Ghanaian voters knew what they wanted. We'll punish MPP by not voting for their MP, but we'll give everybody another chance. Because the swing of votes is normally, it is rare for a government to lose so many seats as their president winning first round. You push it to close, round off, or maybe a margin of 200,000, 300,000, but over 500,000 votes. and losing so many seats in parliament tells you the sophistication of the Ghanaian voter. They knew what they wanted.
Are we not taking out the element of propaganda, when it comes to elections?
Propaganda will always be there. So don't even let us go there. You will never have an election without propaganda. The propaganda will always be there.
Okay.
Propaganda will always be there. So that one there, it is like the tongue and the teeth, they are the same one. Propaganda and voting will always be there.
Let's zoom in on the NPP's future as we are talking about the government.
Yeah.
President Akufo-Addo, as you already made the point, would not be contesting the next flag bearership of the party. We have heard the vice president and Alan Chamatin's name everywhere.
Yeah.
Of the two, per your work, I know you've been doing already, who is likely to aid the NPP, break the 8?
It is too early. Already there is the 8 that Ghanaians give. And I think that I don't think maybe now or 2024 it is going to be difficult for a party to be given 8 again. You see, the MPP has a history of being weakened whenever they elect a new flag bearer. And 2024 run-up will not be exceptional. I think that the way it is handled will determine how MPP will perform, whether they can break the 8 or not. I think that if you look at MPP now, yes, the two front runners are Alan Bawumia. Let's say in the event Bawumia wins, it is likely that they will continue to 2028. In the event Alan wins, he'll be like Akufo-Addo, he'll be 73 in 2028. If MPP loses, no matter who the candidate is, it's going to be difficult. Alan will be 69 in 2021. And if he loses and he and Bawumia compete again, it's going to be difficult for Alan to win in 2028. Alan will be 73, Bawumia will be 65. And the advantage both of them will have, especially Bawumia, is that they've been in the public space, people are seeing him advice and so on. So that is the dynamics. And as to who would win, it depends on who gets elected in terms of who gets more supporters elected as potential delegates.
Can Bawumia break the 8 if he's leading the party going into 2024?
It's too early. I mean, clearly now the chips are down. I know that some supporters of Alan are using unfair tactics against Bawumia.
How do you mean when you say they're using unfair tactics against?
Oh yes, you realize that clearly they've already started, because we are still on the ground. They've already started spinning the religious matter, the angle that if you pick Bawumia, the Christians will vote for a Muslim. That is what they are doing, and you can see that Bawumia has endeared himself closely to the Christian community, especially the Pentecostals. Now, the Pentecostals leadership have more control on their members than traditional churches. So that could backfire big time against Alan, because some of his supporters are going to use it. And you can see that the Pentecostals, Bawumia has wormed his way into the Pentecostals. And that is what, if they continue, could have a backlash on Alan. Because you need to bear in mind that the delegates will vote for somebody that will be accepted by the 1/3 of the voting public who are swing. Alan, defeated by Male Group 2, they will also have their unfair tactics hitting below the belt. You know, Alan in 2008 was calling Nanado an old man at the age of 64 years. And you, Alan, you'll be 69 in 2024.
All right, let me turn that same question around. Can Alan break the 8?
No matter who can, it's going to be difficult for them. And the last 2 years of Akufo-Addo's government will determine whether whoever he hands over to, you understand, whoever he hands over to will be judged by him and his performance. I think that one of the dangers for the MPP is that, remember in 2007, the late Ali Mahama, may he rest in peace, contested and he got 7%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the event that Baumia does not win, the MPP is finished. It's going to be difficult for people from the north who have voted for the MPP to think that, the MPP did not respect us. That anytime we bring somebody from the north, Baumia has done 16 years, 8 years as unsuccessful running mate, unsuccessful vice president to be. He's worked 8 years with Akufo-Addo, and he's not getting it because he's from the north. You need to bear in mind the NDC had already, Mama has gone even on record to say that Baumia will not get it because they will only use him and he won't get the slot. So if MPP does not, if Baumia does not get the flag bearership slot, MPP will be doomed for many years to come. You can see that from 2016 to 2020, the party did well, relatively well in the northern regions, you know. So that is going to be danger. And for the MPP, you know, they will say, oh, like, it's mainly Ashanti and Achim. Nana has come, Achim has come. It's now the turn for the Ashantis. I think that Alan Kyerematen's greatest mistake was not going to Parliament. That was his political get. And if he doesn't get it, that would have cost it. You know, if you go into Parliament, and I went into Parliament, Mama went into Parliament, you get some sort of feel about how to deal with. So the MPP thing is going to be very difficult. I think the MPP is in a situation like you are climbing a tree. Halfway through, you look up, you see a snake. Below, you see a lion. You have to choose a way to die, and you have to choose a way to survive post 2024.
Now, the Akan party thing.
Pardon?
The Akan party thing for the NPP. And
well, before you continue, in elections, I don't have one Akan. In elections, I have Akan Tree, which is Ashanti Eastern. They are pro MPP.
Yeah.
And I have Akan Fanti, which is Central Western, which are swing. Do you get me? So yes, so that yes.
But I'm limiting myself to the NPP to talk about the Achim Ashanti thing that is in there.
Yeah.
Now the reason why I'm asking this is, you know, there's this notion out there that Alan has the support of former President John Adjei Kufuor and all. I want to ask if the former president's, you know, presence could in any way influence the outcome of a flag bearership race between Alan and
which former president?
John Adjei Kufuor.
Oh, I think that
has he got that influence in the party?
It has dwindled. He still got some, but it has dwindled. You're talking about somebody who left office in 2008. You know, it has dwindled. He's still it has dwindled, and I think that if even today President Kufuor comes out and says he is supporting Alan Kyerematen, I don't think the impact will be as big as it was in 2008.
All right. Well, if you just join us, I'm having a conversation with Mr. Ben Ephson, and we are talking about you know, the politics of the country. Our focus has been on the Akufo-Addo administration, the NPP, the bid to select a flag bearer going into the next election. It's the next level of our conversation will focus on the NDC, the reforms they sent to the Electoral Commission. Some people have been asking the question as to the powers at play in the NDC today. They say that George Rawlings is no longer there. It's left with former President John Dramani Mahama, and that there isn't balance. We would look at that. The reforms they sent would look at that as well. And then the relationship between them and the Electoral Commission will look at that as well. So stay with us. Alright, so you're welcome back. You're still live on Fact Sheet, and this is live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and eTV, and on other affiliates in Tamale and Bogatanga, DC 95.9 and then 100.1. We're here with Mr. Ephson. So, Mr. Ephson, earlier we were looking at the NPP, and now we're focusing our attention on the NDC. How would you describe the NDC today after its loss on the election petition?
Well, I think that the NPP in a strong position. Just, for example, you will say that we're breaking it to be difficult, but we have talked about the NPP. Can you imagine a scenario where maybe 6 months to election end of his term, Akufo-Addo says he's sick, so he's stepping down, and gives it to Bamia to be president. Bamia decides to offer Alan the vice president position. That will strengthen the NPP into 2024. If they don't, and there is open campaigning, NPP will be weakened. The NDC seems to have an advantage that they did so well, better than they even expected. Going into 2025, I don't think there's anybody who can beat John Mahama.
Okay.
In terms of the flag bearership slot. I don't think so.
Now, let's look at the NDC now after it had gone for the election petition, and then the judgment was not in their favor, and the efforts at rejuvenating and rekindling the fire in the party. The flag bearer has been embarking on a Thanksgiving tour. Do you see that as relevant?
Well, I think that yes, it's relevant. You have to go and thank people who voted for you.
After a loss?
Pardon?
After a loss?
Where did they come from? How many seats did they win? They're giving your party a solid base. You have to thank them. How about those other smaller parties? The 10 of them got less than 1.5%. I don't think that Mahama himself, honestly, or the NDC party, thought they would get so many seats back. I don't think so. In their hearts, they didn't think they would get so many. So he needs to thank the people for what they've done for him and the party.
Now, the power play in the NDC, for instance, if we talk about the NPP, we know that former President Kufuor is there. He's a force to reckon with in the party. The sitting president is there. There are other top gurus in the party who are also very formidable in terms of decision making. Do you see that with the absence of George Rawlings in the party? President Mills is also no longer there. Do you see any power or force that has the ability to check the NDC and its day-to-day activities they embark on?
There are blocks. You see, I think is that you have the Mills block, you have the Rawlings block. The spearheads are not there. God has called them up. But within the NDC, yes, we have a Mahama faction. You disregard these two blocks at your own peril. Mahama will pay a price if he did. I think one of the reasons the NDC lost heavily in 2016 was the Mahama thought that he could form his own Mahama faction and go ahead. No. I'm sure.
But is there really a Mills block and a Rawlings block in the NDC?
Of course there is.
How much of a force are they in the NDC today to reckon with?
Oh, I think that the Mahama block will be about a third, Rawlings block a third, Mills block a third. So if you try to, you are the youngest of the blocks, So if you try to force your way that you are president, okay, Kofani here. I mean, the most dangerous aspect of elections is when your core base decides not to vote and they fold their arms.
Are these blocks, from your perspective, in unison as we speak?
Pardon?
the NDC, these blocks
Yeah.
that you speak about, would you say they are in unison as we speak now in the NDC?
Well, I think that the heavy defeat in 2016, the NDC went into 2020 a bit more stronger and unified than 2016. The 2016 was shambles. The NDC went into 2020 a bit more stronger and a bit more unified. And I think that the closeness of winning in 2020 will put Mahama straight. That you are a young man, a relatively young man in the party, and you cannot carry the party on your back. So I'm sure that Mahama will do things a bit more differently to get into 2024.
There are those who hold the view that he should just have allowed for somebody else to lead the party, with the thinking that even if he wins 2024, it's just for a term, and the NDC would now have to look for a new flag bearer to lead them. Do you subscribe to that position?
I don't. There's nobody now who can, unless maybe he's sick or something. But I think that using Mahama, what Mahama will need to do is to pick a running mate who will add value to the ticket and could be possibly one of the persons to possibly lead NDC 2028.
But don't they have there already? Professor Jinan Opoku.
Well, I think that you need to, the party will have to assess, because Professor Nena, who I think that will be about 73 in 2028. Yes, whether he will be, I don't think that Ghanaians will ever vote again for a president who is past 70. I don't think so.
But would you advise the NDC to run with the same, running mates they did in 2020? Would you advise the NDC to run with the same?
Well, we are doing our assessment. That is for the book, the new book I'm writing. But the NDC themselves, they have a research. They should be able to see the impact and then do analysis of the potential replacements and weigh them and see. Because when 4% of Ghanaians vote on ethnic basis, you can't throw that away. Yes, Prof is from Central Region. You need to look. You need to look that if Prof is not going, you need to bring in somebody who add more than what Prof brought from being Central. I need to tell you that the fact that you pick a running mate from Central Region does not guarantee their vote.
But would you say that she was able to help the NDC in terms of bringing in votes from the Central Region?
Well, yes, Central Region vote. I mean, look, give an example, Professor Moss. Kufuor beat him in Central in 2000. I did work to find out why. Kufuor beat him again in 2004. I did work to find out. For both times, the Central people felt that we are tired of Rawlings, and you say you consult Rawlings morning and day. Kufuor Moss beat Akufo-Addo in 2008 in Central. Those who are naive were saying that, when Kufuor beat Moss in 2004, was Moss a Northerner or an Ibema? Moss beat Nana in Central because Professor Moss turned down the Rawlings choice of Betty Mood as running mate. So they say, the man is his own man now. So you pick somebody from Central Region, it does not guarantee you the vote because it's from Central. And you need to bear in mind that since 1992, there's always been a function on the NDC ticket, either number 1 or number 2. So we need to bear in mind that the fact that he picks somebody from Central does not guarantee the vote.
But would you advise them to go, with the same tickets going into 2024?
Well,
from your little research you have done,
we haven't finished. We'll finish by around October. But I think that Prof added. Now you need to find out that if there are others, would they bring more to the ticket than Prof brought?
Do you think there are others in the NDC who can bring more going into the 2024 elections?
There are one or two, but
who comes to mind?
Eshun comes to mind.
I have not thought about it. I don't even have a party card to even think about being around in this.
I think that people like Sylvester Mensah, Iwada, Wajaho, any of these three, Alex Mold, so any of these will be, I'm sure, when there is the consideration of whether to replace Prof or not. So far, it looks like John has been going wrong with him, but they'll be filing in about 2.5 years, 3 years time. So it's still the seat could still the slot could still be up for grabs.
Now let's switch and go to the recent activities with the EC and the NDC.
Yeah.
They wrote some reforms that they feel would need to implement with our electoral process. Key amongst them is the fact that they want for the electoral commissioner to go through parliament through vetting before finally being approved as received with our justices and other individuals who are independent in nature, just as the EC. Do you subscribe to that position?
I don't. The Supreme Court judges go to vetting, yet they are still painted with podcast brush. When MPP won in 2000, the Electoral Commission was appointed by the NDC. When MPP won in 2016, the Electoral Commission was appointed by the NDC. So in terms of ensuring impartiality, I don't think that going for vetting will make the Electoral Commission be impatient. Look, my brother, if with my little knowledge in elections, I'm writing my 7th book on elections in Ghana. If Nana Akufo-Addo decides to take his cousin Gabi as electoral commissioner, or Bumpty, his brother, or Mahama decides to take Ibrahim Mahama as electoral commissioner, I will say let them go. You lose your election at the polling station. So no matter who is there, by the time the results get to the EC, sand has been poured in the gari. You lose at the polling station.
Now, let me ask this one. Is it possible to rig elections? They always say it all happens at the polling station.
Very easy.
Really? When the numbers are being transmitted via text messages to the various collation centers?
No. I've always said, even before the 2012 elections, look at the polling station. Let me give a typical scenario. In 2016, for example, maximum was 1,000 voters per polling station. Party A goes to pick an unemployed person and says that, be my polling agent. I'll give you 200 cedis for the day. So here is 50 cedis advance. We'll give you lunch. They will give you the balance by close of day. You don't know the person, the party you support. He doesn't have any loyalty to you. And they've been doing it every 4 years. Now you go, you strike a conversation with the person, especially when you get to know the person is not an inner party member. By lunchtime, you give him some of your breakfast, you give him some of your lunch. By 2 o'clock, you struck an acquaintanceship. That you can tell the person, oh, they'll give you a balance of 100 cedis. You can take 200 cedis, just sign the pink sheet. Once he signs the pink sheet, and at 5, voting is over, and 600 of the 1,000 people have come to vote, the parties would then add 300 votes. It will be in the ballot box, but they will add 300 votes. Once the total number of votes total does not cross the number of voters, they've added 300 to their votes because the opponent's polling agent has signed the sheet. If they take 10,000 polling stations and they add 300, that's 300,000 easy, gone.
So then I ask, is it possible that, as the NDC has been claiming, the elections were stolen in 2020? Is that possible?
Did they prove it? Look, let me give my personal view on the NDC matter. If the NDC had their pink sheets, the basis for saying Nana Akufo-Addo did not get 50% plus 1, they are giving their pink sheets to the Supreme Court. Here are the pink sheets that we think Nana didn't get 20% plus 1. The Supreme Court would have gotten the pink sheet, give it to 2 or 3 auditing firms, total it. If the total is the same as what the NDC is saying, they want a runoff. They didn't have the pink sheets.
Do you think the NDC used the wrong approach going to court?
Oh, I think that was their decision. That is my view. If you have your pink sheets, the basis for saying that I didn't get 50% plus 1, give the Supreme Court. Without spending 2 weeks at the Supreme Court.
Should Mrs. Jean Mensah have mounted, the box to clear, as the NDC, put it, I'll paraphrase, to clear her name as to the sincerity with which she conducted the election? Should she have?
Mensa is the head of a group of people who make up EC. And I was wondering what her being the box would change to whatever they brought out. You are making the allegation. If the NDC had their clean sheet, Mensa wouldn't have been, they wouldn't have even asked Mensa. You want Mensa's clean sheet to make your case, then what's the basis for saying that I didn't get 50% plus one? The basis for which you are saying it, give it to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court will give it to independent auditors to total. They did not have it. If you have it, why didn't you give it up? And people brought